From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Welcome. Tonight, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola seeks the cooperation of his colleagues in his quest to transform the judiciary as he's sworn in as substantive Chief Justice of Nigeria. 2023 budget passes second reading at the two chambers of the National Assembly. While the Senate queries the rise in recurrent expenditure, the House of Representatives is worried about the funding parameters for the budget. And House of Representatives to investigate circumstances surrounding setting ablaze of an oil vessel by security agencies alleged to be used for oil theft. On business news tonight, about 500,000 barrels expected to be added to Nigeria's crude oil output as Shell local subsidiary is set to resume oil export at Forcados terminal by the end of October.
On sports news tonight, Serie A side Napoli secures spot in the round of 16 of the UEFA Champions League following a 4-1 victory against Ajax to make it 4 wins in 4 games.
And in international news from London, Russia says it has detained 8 people on connection with Saturday's explosion on a key bridge linking Russia to Crimea.
It's a new dawn in the nation's judiciary as Justice Olukayode Ariwoola officially takes his oath of office today as the country's Chief Justice. Justice Ariwoola took the judicial oath of office in a brief ceremony at the Council chambers before the commencement of the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. The ceremony was witnessed by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, ministers, other justices of the Supreme Court, as well as the governors of Oyo and Ondo states. Our State House correspondent Gloria Muzoke reports.
Barely 10 weeks after the justices of the Supreme Court converged on the council chamber for the swearing-in of Justice Olukayode Ariwoola as acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, they are back to witness the President, Muhammadu Buhari, swear him in as the substantive CJN.
I, Ariwoola Olukayode, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
As required by the Constitution, the CJN takes the judicial oath in full capacity and signs the register, as witnessed by the governors of Oyo and Ondo states. After the ceremony, the CJN, who was first appointed a Supreme Court justice in 2011 by former President Goodluck Jonathan, reiterates his intention to transform the judiciary while calling for cooperation.
Computerization is already taking place, not only in the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, and other courts of record in Nigeria. Politicians should allow the judiciary to function. You know, law is not static. And that's why you have seen that the National Assembly had continued to amend the laws. And it is the law that the courts apply to the facts available. We shall continue to do justice if only Nigerians will allow us to perform and function without any pressure.
We counted ourselves quite lucky, and we look forward to supporting him to contribute to the development of the judiciary in Nigeria.
The council also observed a minute's silence in honor of the former Minister of Special Duties and Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Chief Vincent Ogbulafo, after which 4 ministers moved to apprise the media of what was discussed and approved during the council meeting. Speaking on the controversial subject of a recent ban of visa on arrival by Ethiopia to Nigerians and other African countries, the aviation minister assures of engagements to reverse it.
This particular one, I think, is initiated by their own Ministry of Interior and Foreign Affairs. They applied it on countries. It's not unique to Nigeria. But that said, it came to our notice, and we spoke to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, our own Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Immigration Service to deal with it, and the embassy as well. And I'm sure that Nigeria is one of the markets they cherish well. So they must look into the policy.
Aside addressing fears over the impact of the recent floods on the Abuja-Lokoja road, the Minister of Works and Housing disclosed that the Federal Executive Council approved 202.8 billion naira for the takeover of the construction of the Enugu-Onitsha road by a telecommunications company under the government's tax credit scheme.
We hope that when the water fully recedes, we will see the full extent of damage, but we are already planning our Ember Month movement, which we do in the last quarter of the year, so that will take into consideration any damage that has been done, and we will try and remedy as much of it as resources and time allow us, so that we prepare for that heavy movement period during the festive period.
The council approved a total of 4.5 billion naira award of contracts for the supply of vehicles and insurance by Nigeria Police Trust Fund for tactical operations. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
From there, we move to the legislature, where the 2023 appropriation bill has scaled second reading in the National Assembly. At the Senate, the lawmakers debated the general principles of the bill and referred it to its committees for further legislative action. Meanwhile, at the House of Representatives, the lawmakers are worried about the parameters to funding the budget.
Has come under order.
The 2023 appropriation bill is considered for second reading in the Senate, 5 days after it was presented by President Muhammadu Buhari.
Security challenges.
Lawmakers commenced debate, with some expressing dissatisfaction with certain parts of the bill.
The total recurrent expenditure put together and all that, if you look at it, as the leader stated in his report, consumes or is going to consume 43% of the budget. 43. The total capital this year, there is a little improvement, but all of it is 4.9 trillion. Just half of what is going to be spent as recurrent expenditure.
Monies we borrowed outside the interest, and so our debt service will, in 1 year, it has moved by 75%. It's really a dangerous one. And so, having said that, I will say again, like I said during the MTF, that we just need to cut the cost of governance.
And if you come down to even sub-Saharan Africa, we are competing with very small countries in allocation to education. Countries that have less endowment in human and material resources. And so, Mr. President, I think that we must choose our priorities very correctly. Otherwise, we will continue to talk about this budget year in, year out.
The bill scales second reading, while the Senate also passes the Federal Capital Territory 2022 appropriation bill for second reading. The upper chamber was, however, upset over the lateness of the budget. Meanwhile, in the House of Representatives, the 2023 appropriation bill was also debated.
The oil revenue is projected at 1.92 trillion naira. That is if and only if we can keep on to the target of 1.69 barrel per day, 1.6 million barrel per day. As it is now, I think it's over-ambitious to put it at 1.69. If there's possibility for us to come down and reduce it to something that will be near perfection.
Do you know that if we are to block the crude oil theft between now and December, Mr. Speaker, we can make more than 4.5 trillion. Just 4.5 trillion naira between now and December 31st, 2022.
The debate is wrapped up by the majority and minority leaders.
Mr. President alluded to the fact that part of this budget is meant to attend to the insecurity in the nation. I will expect that those relevant committees will look at those areas where we have insurgency and where we have insecurity and be able to ensure that sufficient funds are provided for them.
Our status in terms of percentage of our debt indebtedness is 40% today to our GDP. It is of concern. It is of concern, I agree, but we are still within the limit of the international threshold.
While the bill scales second reading and lawmakers prepare for the budget's defense, they question the parameters which are expected to fund the budget, describing them as unrealistic.
Staying with the National Assembly, in the Green Chamber, where the House of Representatives is to investigate the circumstances involving the setting ablaze of an oil vessel by security agencies alleged to be used for oil theft. This follows a motion of urgent importance by Honourable Onyofiok Luke questioning why it was not preserved for investigative purposes and prosecution of the matter.
The House notes that oil theft is a problem that has existed for a long time in the Niger Delta and has caused serious environmental degradation of the region and has negatively impacted on the revenue generation of Nigeria, causing the country to lose about 470,000 barrels of oil per day, amounting to $700 million monthly, according to the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. Disturbed about the reported destruction of the said vessel by the security operatives, instead of preserving same as evidence for prosecution purposes, the House resolves to 1. Urge the investigation of the circumstances and the reason for the destruction of the illegal bunkering vessel by the security operatives, instead of preserving it for evidentiary use in the prosecution of the matter.
To politics now, where the crisis rocking the African Democratic Congress, ADC, is far from over, as the party has formally ratified the expulsion of its presidential candidates, Dumebi Kachikwu and his running mate Ahmed Rufai, from the party. The expulsion was done during a special convention held on Wednesday at the Congo campus of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria in Kaduna State. Others affected include the party's Board of Trustees Chairman, Senator Patricia Akwashike, National Vice Chairman, Northeast, some state chairmen, and party executives. The convention also returned Chief Ralph Nwosu as the party's national chairman, while other national officers whose tenures have expired were replaced by affirmation. Given reasons for the expulsion of the party's presidential candidate, the chairman explains that the candidate has not been able to come up with a campaign manifesto since he was elected as presidential candidate, and that he has also been working against the interest of the party. Meanwhile, as far as the presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress, Dumebi Kachikwu, is concerned, what transpired in Kaduna is nothing but a charade. Mr. Kachikwu, in a statement, advised members of the public to discountenance any statements emanating from Mr. Ralph Nwosu and his team. He wondered how someone who only recently claimed he was granted a one-year extension by a special convention at the end of August could now conduct another special convention in October for the same purpose. According to him, it is clear Mr. Nwosu enjoys conducting conventions, having done so for the last 17 years. He further stated that the Senator Patricia Akwashike-led ADC would soon hold a convention to usher in a new set of executives who would lead the party to victory in the forthcoming polls. In part 2, after the break, Supreme Court fixes October 21 to rule in an appeal filed by David Edevie to determine if he is the rightful governorship candidate of the PDP for next year's election, Delta State. That's in a moment. Please join us again. back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Justice Olukayode Ariwola seeks the cooperation of his colleagues in his quest to transform the judiciary as he is sworn in as Chief Justice of Nigeria. 2023 budget passes second reading at the two chambers of the National Assembly. While the Senate queries the rise in recurrent expenditure, the House of Representatives is worried about the funding parameters for the budget. House of Representatives to investigate circumstances involving setting ablaze of an oil vessel by security agencies alleged to be used for oil theft. And Russia says it has detained 8 people in connection with Saturday's explosion on a key bridge linking Russia to Crimea. More political stories. The Director General of the Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Donyo Kupe, says those who think that the party has only social media supporters would be in for a surprise at the polls in 2023. Addressing journalists in Abuja, he explains that over 80% of all new voters in the forthcoming general elections are supporters of the Labour Party. At the briefing, the party announced its campaign council constituting 1,234 members. Mr. Okupe retains his position as Director General of the Council, and a retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Mr. Mohammed Zarewa, is Chairman of the Council.
Thank you. The National Organizing Secretary of the Labour Party, Mr. Clement Ojukwu, reads the names of the party's campaign council for the 2023 presidential election. According to him, the 1,234-member campaign council is an all-inclusive organization.
The people who made the list came from the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria. The youths and people living with disabilities were not left behind.
In his remarks, the Director General of the Campaign Council highlights the party's campaign strategy, insisting that the support base is beyond social media.
Because they are old school, they undermine the power of the internet, undermine the power and influence the ramifications of the social media. And I'm telling you that 80% of the new voters are obedient. Just let us pray for life. We will show them.
Members of the Labour Party are the drivers of the popular movement known as Obedient Movement. It is largely driven by young people, who many say have no political history and cannot influence the outcome of the 2023 general elections, an opinion many members of the Labour Party strongly disagree with.
Everybody wants a new government, a new direction, a new way of doing things, which Labour Party offers through its presidential candidates and the vice presidential candidates. So don't ever be lured into believing that is only a section of Nigeria that is following Labour Party. All Nigerians are following Labour Party.
You see, Nigerians are tired. This is the fight for the soul of this country. So you can see clearly that Nigerians are ready. It's not about people will get their PVC.
It's a new day dawning. There's no more structure for them. All we see in their campaign or whatever they are doing are people coming to collect money from them because of the hardship they've foisted on Nigerians. After collecting their money, I can assure you, they will move over.
It's barely 5 months to the general elections, and without a doubt, the months ahead will be very critical for all participating political parties as they try to convince the electorate to vote for their candidates.
Still ahead of next year's election, opposition political parties in Nigeria, under the aegis of Coalition of United Political Parties, are raising alarm over an alleged plot to stop electronic transmission of the 2023 election results and deactivate the bimodal voter accreditation system, (BVAS), from the INEC server during the election. Addressing a joint news conference in Abuja, the spokesman of the coalition, Mr. Ikenga Ugochinyere, says there is immense pressure on the leadership leadership of INEC to deactivate the BVAS from the server, and a plot by some governors to cause a leadership change in the electoral management body, which will consume top officials, including the chairman, a few national commissioners who are insisting on the use of the BVAS.
The chairman of Nigerian political parties, opposition coalition CUPP, and heads of political associations have intercepted intelligence of an alleged fresh plot against the 2023 general election, and this time being coordinated by leading figures of the ruling APC governors, led by a Southeast APC governor with controversial past, and another from the Northwest, who are working with their colleagues to perfect a plot to intimidate INEC leadership into abandoning the use of electronic transmission and upload of election results to the INEC server, deactivation of the BVAS machine from INEC server, and the creation of crisis of confidence based on trump-up charges that will lead to the removal of top officials of the Electoral Commission, including the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud, and other national commissioners who are insisting on the use of BVAS for the 2023 election and the irreversible use of electronic transmission of results.
But in response, the All Progressives Congress has debunked the claims of alleged pressure on the Independent National Electoral Commission to deactivate the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, in addition to mobilizing for the sacking of the chairman of the commission. Fielding questions from journalists in Abuja after a tripartite meeting of the National Working Committee of the party, governors on the platform of the party, and the Presidential Campaign Council, Chief Spokesperson of the Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Festus Keyamo, says the allegations are unfounded. He also announced that the meeting, which was held behind closed doors, deliberated on the party's manifesto and proposed commencement dates for its presidential campaigns.
There has been absolutely no occasion where the APC, either by the NWC or any of its levels of leadership, put any kind of pressure on INEC. It is those who are sensing defeat are already looking for reasons for that defeat. But I can tell you that it is one of the reasons, it is one of the excuses they are trying to generate to accommodate their defeat, but they know their defeat is imminent. Part of the structures of our campaign involves a presidential diary. So I have said it before that our campaign is not like those who have done kick and start with their small vehicles. Our campaign is like maneuvering a 50-ton trailer into the highway. And once we hit the highway, we hit the highway. So that is what we are doing. The president is the chairman of the campaign council. We are going to take his diary into consideration in picking and choosing the dates. But we are all virtually agreed that we are going to hit the streets very soon. We have agreed on the region we are going to begin from. I'm not going to say that now. We have agreed on the region. We have agreed basically all the basic issues. We just want to carry the leader of the party along the president, and we hit the streets.
And to legal matters, a federal high court in Abuja has fixed January 19 next year for hearing in a suit instituted by the People's Democratic Party against President Muhammadu Buhari, challenging the move to tamper with the Electoral Act 2022. Justice Iyangeko fixed the date following information made available to the court that a related suit on the same Electoral Act is pending at the Supreme Court. In a brief ruling, Justice Eko held that it was better for the Federal High Court to thread softly and subsequently fix January 19 to await the report of the Supreme Court's decision on the Electoral Act. The PDP, through Ogu Onoja, had sued President Muhammadu Buhari, the Attorney General of the Federation, and the Senate President over a move to alter an aspect of the Electoral Act 2022 after it had been signed into law by the President himself.
We came to court this morning, we informed the court that the decision of the Supreme Court did not touch on the subject matter of our suit here. Because our own suit here is challenging the President's directive that the National Assembly should delete Section 8412 after it has been passed and assented by the President. So that is our matter here. And also, the second leg of our matter is that the President cannot declare unconstitutional a law that has been passed by the National Assembly and assented to by the President. So the two issues are different. So our issue is still live in this court, which this court has all the bars to pronounce judgment on it. But then another counsel brought a new information that there is another matter before the Supreme Court touching on the Electoral Act, this particularly section 8412. So that was brought to the notice of the court and also to my notice today, and the court advised that it's better we adjourn and await the Supreme Court decision on this matter, so that there won't be any need to conflict with whatever decision the Supreme Court is going to give.
Staying with the courts, the Supreme Court of Nigeria has fixed October 21 for judgments in an appeal filed by the Delta governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the 2023 governorship election, Mr. David Adebie. A five-man panel of the Apex Court, led by Justice Amina Ogi, fixed the date after all the parties adopted their final briefs of argument. In a 23-ground of appeal, Mr. Adebie faulted the entire unanimous decision of the three-man panel of the Court of Appeal, led by Justice Peter Ige, and asked the Apex Court to hold that he is the rightful candidate of the PDP in the Delta State governorship election slated for February next year. While adopting his brief of arguments, counsel for Mr. Adebie, Mr. Tayo Oyetibo, told the Apex Court that Mr. Voriwori had claimed that he was born in 1963. He, however, tendered a West African Examination Council WAEC certificate that was issued to someone that showed he was born in 1979. Meanwhile, counsel for Mr. Voriwori, Mr. Damian Dodo, urged the Apex Court to dismiss the appeal for want of merit. He therefore urged the court to dismiss the appeal and reinstate the judgment of the Court of Appeal that recognized his clients as the authentic candidate of the PDP for the governorship contest. Still in the courts, the All Progressives Congress APC has told the Federal High Court Abuja that it did not conduct the primary election that purportedly produced Dr. Uche Oga as its governorship candidate in Abia State 2023 general elections. On the contrary, the party claims that its National Working Committee conducted a primary election monitored by officials of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, which produced Ikechi Emenike as its official governorship flag bearer. The party is asking the Federal High Court to dismiss Oga's suit on two grounds, which include that the former Minister of Solid Minerals, who did not participate in the primary election conducted by the National Working Committee, has no locus standi to challenge the legally conducted primary election. They also state that the court lacked the jurisdiction to entertain the issues of nomination of candidates for elective office by the party. The APC further told the court that the claim of Oga that he emerged from a direct primary election cannot hold because the Electoral Act makes it mandatory for a direct primary to be conducted in 184 wards of the state, as against that of Uche conducted in one place. The former minister told the court that the direct primary election that produced him was monitored by officials of INEC and that a report to the effect was made available by the Electoral Act. He urged the court to nullify the nomination of Ikechi Emenike and order INEC to publish his name as a lawful APC candidate. Justice Binta Nyako subsequently fixed November 11 for judgment. And still ahead on the news at 10, about 500,000 barrels expected to be added to Nigeria's crude output as Shell local subsidiary is set to resume oil export at Forcados terminal. That's by the end of October. That's on Business News. To join us again. Welcome back. We continue in the courtrooms where the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, has given the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, the go-ahead to prosecute a former Minister of Aviation, Senator Stella Odua, before Justice Inyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court, Abuja. The senator representing Anambra North Senatorial District is to be arraigned on a 25-count charge, along 8 other defendants. Senator Odua and her co-accused persons have not been able to take their plea because of an application by one of the defense lawyers asking the court not to go on with the plea taking.
What transpired in court is what you had in court. His Lordship has adjourned the matter for full trial to February next year. Prosecution on our part, we have concluded all the investigation and we are ready to proceed with the prosecution. And His Lordship has given us a date. It has not taken any long. The Attorney General has reviewed the file in accordance with his powers under the law. Having reviewed it, has given the EFCC the go-ahead to prosecute the matter, and that is exactly what we are doing based on the advice of the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation.
Staying in Abuja, the Court of Appeal has shifted hearing in an application filed by the detained leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, seeking to be joined in the appeal, challenging the proscription of the group by the federal government on March 7, 2023. Mr. Kanu had on September 5, 2022, filed the application for joinder as an interested party in the January 18, 2018 judgment that proscribed IPOB. Although hearing in the application was scheduled for Wednesday, the appellate court did not sit and the matter was shifted to March 7, 2023. Lead counsel to Kanu, who filed the processes, said his client was appealing the judgment of the trial court, which was rendered without hearing from him. And to other stories now, where motorists in Abuja and its environs may soon heave a sigh of relief over the fuel scarcity that resurfaced in the nation's capital. This assurance is coming on the heels of increased petrol tanks that have now arrived at the Suleja depot after days of disruption owing to the flood water along Lokoja Road. Giving this update, the Group Executive Director of the NNPC Limited says a rerouting of trucks meant for other destinations have been implemented in a bid to restore the situation to normalcy.
Arriving Abuja and other destinations, as the flood that earlier restricted the weight of trucks along Lokoja Highway has receded. In addition, the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing has also intervened with the rehabilitation of 10 sections of the damaged Bida-Agai Road in Niger State. As of yesterday, October 11, 2022, 146 petroleum tanker trucks arrived at Suleja Depot for dispatches into Abuja and the environs. Trucks have continued to arrive at Suleja Depot for onward dispatches even as of today. Product delivery to other parts of the country are also continuing with the improved vehicular movement northwards. Additionally, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA, and NNPC Limited have allowed the rerouting of trucks carrying petroleum products from Warri and Ogara axis through Port Harcourt and Makurdi into Abuja and other parts of the north. NNPC Limited would like to assure the general public that it has sufficient petroleum products in stock and that there is no need for panic buying. We also continue to work to ensure an early return to normalcy. Thank you.
Away from the fuel situation in Abuja, with effect from today, Wednesday, October the 12th, 2022, Nigerians can begin taking advantage of the MTN Integra device financing bundle. The service allows customers to subscribe to an MTN plan containing data, voice, and a free device which can be replaced in case of theft or loss. At an event in Lagos to introduce the self-onboarding portal, the partners Integra, MTN, Slots, Stanbic IBTC, and other financial institutions are certain this will help create digitally smarter Nigerians.
Imagine getting a new phone free if you lose one and getting at least 4 GB data and 100 minutes of call monthly. These are some of the benefits available for anyone who subscribes to this plan by MTN in Telegram bundle. The service allows customers to sign up for new phones from the comfort of their homes or office and pay back via data over a 12-month period.
We all believe that digital and financial inclusion is a must to leapfrog this continent forward. That is the goal. It's not just about the phone, it's not just about data, it's not about network. It's how it comes together to bring our people into the digital world, which in turn opens the door to financial inclusion, which is how we improve quality of life for our people, and quite frankly, unlock wealth for a big chunk of our people as well.
And between January and now, when the plan was launched, 20,000 devices have been financed.
The essence of this partnership is to create shared value, and it's impossible for us to achieve all of MTN Nigeria's goals without partners, and that's why we've come together with Integra, who in turn has come together with Slots and various massive players in the banking sector and the microfinance banks as well, right, to deliver financing for devices, to put smartphones in the hands of as many Nigerians as we possibly can.
Some of the other players in this partnership expressed their excitement over the long-term benefit these has for Nigerians, particularly the youth.
Our 75 retail stores, which are strategically located across Nigeria, will become the platform for this kind of transaction. So that is what we're bringing to the table. Quality people, quality service, and the fact that we are selling quality product as well makes it very, very proper for this kind of partnership.
We are bringing the financial muscle and funding initiative. It's a very good partnership that we can see going into the future. But most important of all is the individual, is the everyday Nigerian that will benefit from this. So it's really pulling together our skill where we're very good at, what we're good at for over 160 years. We're bringing that to the table now.
Launched in Nigeria, this device financing service is expected to go across Africa, and there are plans to finance at least 1,000 phones a day in 2023.
The Bank of Industry says over 4 million enterprises have received support across various sectors of the economy, which has created over 9 million jobs. Speaking at the 2022 edition of the SME Directorate Customer Engagement Forum, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the bank says the bank has, in the last 5 years, focused on expanding its impact in the economy, which has translated to growing its asset base to over 2 trillion naira.
From various sectors of the economy, business owners converged for the 2022 SME Customers Forum, organized by the Bank of Industry. The Managing Director and Chief Executive of the bank, who addressed participants virtually, congratulates all the participants for being part of the forum, having survived turbulent and economically trying times. With a message from the Managing Director of BOI, the Executive Director SME calls for effective collaboration.
We have to thank our dear customers and even prospects who have agreed to be here as part of BOI, and we can't forever forget you for all the support, for making it possible for us to prove to Nigerians that we are relevant and will continue to be relevant.
The theme of the forum, Strategic Initiatives for SME Survival and Growth in Today's Dynamic and Challenging Macroeconomic Environment, reflects in the lectures given to the participants.
The message of this simply is to understand that anything happening anywhere in the world, because of the world we live in now, we are largely interdependent, and also operations and other things happening around the world have become so contagious.
We cannot make much progress against the world powers. We cannot get the political liberation we want if we did not have economic power.
Some of the participants applaud the Bank of Industry for the forum.
The role of BOI, as the Executive Director has just said, that they had to go down to the grassroots, because a lot of people cannot have access to what they are doing.
challenges of SMEs remain with us, and that is always our problem.
The 2022 Customer Forum is unique, coming on the heels of International Customer Service Week, which celebrates the importance of customer service and the people who serve and support customers on a daily basis.
This is one bank that has, between 2018 and to date, we have brought in over $5 billion into this country. And therefore, we have funds to give to SMEs, we have funds to give to large enterprises.
The creation of this forum gives opportunity for intervention, experience sharing and feedback mechanism for the development of better products and services for the bank.
And Waldo standing by with more business news.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Business News. Let's begin in Nigeria's oil and gas sector. The crude oil output is expected to increase by 500,000 barrels per day by the end of November. And this is because Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited announced that it will resume crude oil export at the Forcados Oil Export Terminal in Delta State. And this is coming as the local subsidiary of international oil giant plans to complete the ongoing essential repair work on the facility at the end of this month. The Forcados Oil Terminal, which has the capacity to export 400,000 barrels per day of crude oil, receives crude oil from the Forcados oil pipeline system and the second largest pipeline network in the oil-producing region after the Bonny oil pipeline system in the eastern Niger Delta region. The Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has signed 2 bills and 2 memorandum of understandings that will fast-track the 30 years development plan to achieve Africa's model mega city for Lagos. And these include the Lagos State Wealth Fund Bill and Lagos State Civil Bill at the end of the 2022 Economic Summit after unveiling the Lagos Development Plan 2022 to 2052. The governor also signed a memorandum of understanding with Delhi York Group for the film city and media projects and electronic technicians training for youths with Siemens Energy.
This will be the very first subnational sovereign wealth fund in Africa. It will be the very first in our country. And your state, your city is taking an audacious, bold step with this announcement. This is important for us. I would say that we haven't gotten the full sign-off of the House of Assembly, right, but they are aware that we're doing this signing today so that proper laws are now passed to make sure that this fund, this wealth fund, can indeed outlive us. And like you've said, the cardinal objective are to ensure that we can safeguard the future finances of Lagos. Lagos can continue to be resilient as a government, and in the event of anything, it can absorb shocks. It has reserves for which it will be planning, for the future, and it's still part of the future development of Lagos that we're talking about.
Nearly 19 billion naira, that's the amount knocked off from the total value of equities listed on the Nigerian exchange today as a closed midweek trading session with some profit-taking activities. Eni John Mekwa has the details.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the stock market report. Was it a fluke that trading at Nigeria's equities closed positive on Tuesday? No, it wasn't. It was just investors taking advantage of the dip. That's why at the close of midweek, the dominating sentiment is back. That's right, it's still a bear market in Nigeria, many parts of the world, I should say. In Nigeria, however, 19 billion naira was shaved off the market cap That's the figure attached to this red here, 0.07% at 47,531.84. That's the all-share index at the close of trade today, and the market cap at 25.889 trillion naira. That negative sentiment is in the face of over 90% increase in value at about 3.7 billion naira. Yesterday, this was in the red, and almost half of this. Volume was also in the red. It's in the green today, 155 million, but we still see that negative in the deals at 3,797. Now, the financial sector drove the market today from mutual benefits, which topped the trade. It includes price closed and change 27, copper body traded 42 million at the close of trade, GTCO 28 million, and Zenith Bank 12 million. So it's still a bearish market, and it's still an opportunity for an investor to dive into the market if you have the faith. Well, that's the stock market report. It's back to you.
That's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of News at 10 continues with Millicent.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial star 894 hash now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Anne. Away from business, Russia says it has detained 8 people in connection with Saturday's explosion on a key bridge linking Russia to Crimea. Its FSB security service said 5 of those held were Russians, while the others are Ukrainian and Armenian. Simon Pusey has more on this and other news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Russia says it has detained 8 people in connection with Saturday's explosion on a key bridge linking Russia to Crimea. Its FSB security service said 5 of those held were Russians, while the others were Ukrainian and Armenian. It says Kyiv was behind the attack, but a Ukrainian official described Russia's investigation as nonsense. The news came as explosions were reported in the Ukrainian cities of Kherson, Zaporizhia and Nikopol. Video released by the State Emergency Service of Ukraine shows the moment emergency workers rescued a family from rubble after a rocket attack in Zaporizhia. Ukraine's military said its troops were continuing their advance in the region, capturing another 5 towns. Pope Francis has once again condemned what he called Russia's relentless bombings of Ukrainian cities, saying the attacks had unleashed a hurricane of violence on residents. Speaking to thousands of people at his weekly general audience in St. Peter's Square, he also appealed to those who have the fate of the war in their hands to stop. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that major leaks, which suddenly erupted in the Nord Stream gas pipelines running from Russia to Europe, were an act of international terrorism. Putin said the attacks on the pipelines, which Europe and Western governments have called sabotage, set a dangerous precedent. In a speech at an energy forum in Russia, he also said Russia had nothing to do with sky-high energy prices that Europeans are facing this winter, and blamed the West for stoking a global energy crisis. Striking French oil workers have voted to continue their industrial action, which has led to shortages at fuel stations across the country. They responded angrily after the government said it would use mandatory powers to force some of them to go back to work. The strike, in its 3rd week, has shut 6 of France's 7 oil refineries, with long queues of cars now a regular sight at the pumps. The government wants to get the fuel flowing again. Nearly a third of French petrol stations are now reported to be running short of at least one kind of fuel. Families of victims and survivors of the deadly 2002 Bali bombings have held a minute's silence at the Australian Consulate General in Denpasar to mark the 20th anniversary of the attacks.
We will now hold a minute's silence to reflect on and remember the lives lost and those injured in the Bali bombings. Thank you.
Australian consulate staff, families of victims and survivors attended the ceremony in Bali while officials placed floral wreaths.
Guys, this is horrendous. I've never seen anything like it. It's huge, it's scary.
88 Australians died in the attacks, which were blamed on the Al-Qaeda-linked jihadist network based in Indonesia.
There's people dead, there's everything.
The two almost simultaneous blasts on Bali's Kuta Strip in 2002 killed a total of 202 people and devastated the resort island's tourism industry. Spain is marking its national holiday with a military parade attended by the king and his family. King Felipe VI inspected the troops and waved to crowds which lined the streets in Madrid. The day is marked across the country, with most people taking the day off work. There was also a flypast before a paraglider landed holding the Spanish flag. The day is significant in Spain as it is the anniversary of when Christopher Columbus, who was sponsored by Spain's Catholic monarchs, discovered America. And the fourth edition of the Street Child World Cup has kicked off in Doha with the participation of children coming from 25 different countries. Football teams from around the globe, representing some of the world's most vulnerable children, took part in the tournament. Traditionally held in the host countries of the FIFA World Cup, previous tournaments have been organised in Russia in 2018, Brazil in 2014 and South Africa in 2010. This year's edition will be held at Qatar Foundation's Education City. It will feature 15 boys teams and 13 girls teams, with 10 of the teams being represented by refugee or displaced children.
And football unifies us. And when these young people play for their country at a World Cup, where the World Cup is, people back home listen. And people back home get on their side, and then people back home change things for them.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Mo Salah, the Egyptian international, came off the bench to score the fastest hat-trick in Champions League history as Liverpool thrashed Rangers 7-1 this evening to put one foot in the Champions League last 16. Well, Barcelona and Inter played a 3-3 draw at the Camp Nou. Well, Bayern Munich also qualified for the last 16 after they beat Victoria Pilsen, that's the Czech side, by 4-2. Well, Toby Amusan has been nominated for the 2022 Women's World Athlete of the Year, making her the first Nigerian ever to receive the nomination. Amusan has had a fantastic year, 2022, breaking the 100 meters hurdles world record on her way to winning gold at the World Athletics Championships in Oregon in a time of 12.12 seconds. And that's Rapid Sports News.
And the main news again. Justice Olukayode Aruola today reiterated his intention to transform the nation's judiciary. Speaking shortly after he was sworn in as Chief Justice of Nigeria, he also sought the cooperation of his colleagues in achieving his objectives. 10 to 9. Thank you for watching. I'm Melissa Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.